When did you decide? At what point was it where you're like, I'm going to run for city council? Because it's a tough decision. San Clemente is a unique culture, a unique city. When did you decide to run for city council?
Yeah, so this is actually my second time running for San Clemente City Council. My first campaign was in 2020 during the pandemic, and that's what really inspired me and motivated me to run for city council. I feel like our constitutional rights were just being stripped from us for no reason. Closing the wide open ocean so you couldn't even go paddleboarding, closing the schools, churches, businesses, while the liquor store, Walmart, and even strip clubs stayed open. It was just nonsense. So that's why I ran.
Absolutely. And like we talked about a little bit before, San Clemente being a huge beach culture, one of the things that has affected us the most is the beach erosion, the loss of sand, the beach erosion.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
people obviously are just up in arms as
Hmm.
they should be with
Yep.
that. What's your take on that, and what's the solution that you could
Yeah.
possibly bring?
Well, there's no doubt that our beaches are our most precious resource here in San Clemente. It's the lifeblood of our community. I mean, we live in such a great community where you don't always necessarily need a babysitter. I see moms in the summer telling their 10-year-old kids, 12-year-old kids, hey, go down to the beach for the day and stuff. It's so beautiful. But also as a surfer, it's disappointing that breaks like Riviera,
Hmm.
State Park, they're not as good as they used to be when I
Yeah.
moved here 9 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
Um,
Cotton's Point,
yeah,
right? I
yeah,
mean, a lot of
definitely.
these places, yeah.
And it's bad for tourism if we don't have beaches too. Our tourism supports our local economy and our families. So we're getting sand replenishment next year, and we may be getting it. The schedule is about every 6 years or so. I'm for actually annual sand replenishment.
Okay.
So I think we need to do it annually.
Here, and we can continue to grow our city. One thing that I feel could possibly prevent people from coming or going to the beaches is the homelessness that we're currently dealing with. How familiar are you with the homelessness, and what's something that you could, bring to the table there?
Yeah, great question. Well, addressing the homeless problem is something that I'm actually most passionate about, and it takes a lot of compassion. And I feel that I have both of these. Um, the number one reason why I'm running for city council is it's very simple. It's to prevent our lovely community from becoming the next Los Angeles. And homelessness, encroachment, and crime are just out of control. So I believe that I actually have the best solution to address the homelessness problem. Number one, it's increasing social worker outreach, effective social worker outreach. Number two, increasing the budget for our code compliance officers. I don't believe that the deputies always need to be dispatched to deal with the homelessness. I think it's important for our deputies to be focused on more serious crimes, uh, you know, when they can be. So I would really like for our code enforcement to step up enforcing our homeless problem. But we really have our hands tied because the state that we live in, the county that we live in, even the country that we live in, they make it extremely difficult for us to address the homeless problem. They say, hey, you can't do anything. You can't enforce your anti-camping laws. You can't enforce your anti-hoarding laws of personal property in public places. You can't enforce that unless you have a place for them to stay. And
So what do we do? Do we build? Is there a shelter?
yeah,
what's a solution that we could bring to the city where everywhere is a win-win for the
yeah,
homeless? It's a
definitely.
win-win for the
Yeah.
people of San Clemente.
Yeah. So first off, I'm going to tell you what we're not going to do. We're not going to convert our motels into permanent housing for the homeless. And number two, we're not going to build a homeless shelter here in San Clemente or in our parks like some of the candidates want to do. If I had it my way, I wouldn't even support a homeless shelter because that's things that you see in third world countries and in communist countries. But I understand that a shelter, or what I like to call as a temporary transition camp, is definitely the missing link, and that's what we need. So my first priority is actually to secure um, a location away from the city on county land or closer to Costa Mesa and Santa Ana, where the services are that these homeless and transients desperately need. And we're going to establish the city will participate in this temporary transition camp where they could stay, and then that way we could, um, remove these people off of our streets.
Absolutely. You touched briefly on the safety, and I think two examples or two situations that unfolded here in San Clemente. One at Maxburg Park,
Hmm.
super unfortunate situation. There was a stabbing, I believe a shooting. Unfortunate. Families had to witness that. What's your take on how the sheriff department handled it? What's your take on just the
Yeah.
overall crime in that area? And then I want to kind of talk a little bit about the Chilean gang that
Yeah.
has kind of been going on in
Yeah,
Talega. So,
most definitely. Well, um, I've experienced firsthand what poor public policy results in. I'm from Point Loma in San Diego. It's a nice beach community, and it's not safe anymore. There's stabbings, there's shootings. And the same things that's happening there is already happening here. So it's extremely concerning to me. Um, Public safety and homelessness encroachment, like I said, are my number one priorities. And what we need to do is we need to work with our deputies. We need more deputies to enforce these. At Maxburg Park, I have residents emailing me every day saying that there's RVs that are just camped out outside of their house or on the park for days at a time. We have a 5-hour parking limit for RVs and boats. My neighbor got a ticket because his boat was parked outside of our house for for more than 5 hours. This was many years ago.
yeah,
Um, so so definitely we need to be tougher on crime, and I just want criminals. I actually have a message for you. If you want to come to San Clemente, I'll ensure that you have a one-way ticket to Santa Ana County Jail real quick.
I love it. That's a great
Yes,
message,
yes.
including the Chilean gang members that invaded the community of Talega. How does that even happen in a city like San Clemente?
Yeah, well, the state, we could all agree that the direction of our state is definitely going in the wrong direction. We need to secure our borders, um, but more importantly, we need to support our deputies. The OC sheriff, they have a tough job out there. So I support more deputies. Um, San Clemente only has 0.69 deputies per 1,000 residents. Dana Point has more than one. So
So there's room to increase
mhm.
our sheriff count in San Clemente for
Yeah,
sure.
definitely. And then I would also like to make some small changes. Our police chief is great, but they typically get rotated out, every 2 years. And I feel like we need a police chief that's going to stay for a little longer than 2 years, so they could get to know the community, get to know the gangs and stuff, and so we could be more effective. Another policy that I would like to propose is for our deputies. I believe our deputies should live and love where they.
Been a lot of people going to city council and speaking on that. What's your take on e-bike safety, just general e-bikes?
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's no doubt we need to protect our children and our grandparents and everything. I was personally disappointed about the e-bike ban on the beach trail. I understand that there were some issues, but it's interesting how I could ride my racing mountain bike, but my grandmother can't ride her e-bike. So a little disappointed on that. But overall, e-bike safety, something definitely needs to be done. The city does need to step up. We've done bike rodeos in the past. The sheriff's department does a great job, and I think the city should invest more for community education to support the e-bikes.
Absolutely. Not sure if you've been following the new proposed project that Memorial Care is presenting and bringing to the table.
Yes,
Last I saw was the Planning Commission, I believe.
that we love here in San Clemente. So my vision for San Clemente in 5 to 10 years is for all of the local business owners and businesses to be thriving, for us to have a safe community again, where children can play without worrying about sexual predators. Women could walk the beach trail without worrying about being harassed or assaulted. Um, that's my vision for San Clemente: a thriving, prosperous, and most important, free freedom, a community that represents freedom.
If you were to serve on city council and it came down to one thing you wanted to push out there, what is it that Thor Johnson is most passionate about that he wants the people